All right. Welcome to week number 1 of your high paid advisor training. Now, this week is very important. Now, there's a good and a bad thing about this week. The bad thing is that a lot of people that take this class are already pretty successful. And what that means is they view this week, which is 100% planning and strategy is what we do this week. And the successful people in the class view this week as something to be endured while they just wait to get to the quote-unquote good stuff, which is all about generating traffic and converting that traffic into high-paying customers. I urge you to pay very close attention to what we covered this week and to actually do the exercises, which are easy and fun, by the way, that I show you this week. And the reason why it's so incredibly important is because by the end of this training tonight, what you're going to have is absolute clarity about what you want in your business and how you're going to get there. And with that clarity comes confidence. And with that confidence comes simplicity and ease and drive. So the real result of what we covered this week and what we accomplished this week is that you will have confidence and drive, and you will eliminate all nagging processes that are running in your brain and unnecessary effort and unnecessary thought. And the global big picture result is by the end of this training, you will end up doing the type of work which you consider to be your very best work. You'll end up doing the type of work which doesn't feel like work at all and instead feels like play. And you'll end up working with people that you would work with anyway, even if they weren't paying you. So in essence, our overall big picture goal as a result of this week is that you design a business and a life where you make an income, significant income, whatever income you want, by the way, for doing something that which you find very rewarding, and for working with people who, instead of being draining to you, actually fuel your creativity and your overall sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. So that's a lot, isn't it? That's a pretty bold promise for this program and for this week's work specifically, but it's a promise that I can deliver. Actually, it's a promise that you and I can deliver together. So here's what we're going to cover this week. First thing we're going to do is we're going to determine specifically what you need in order to have a life of stress-free abundance. That's where you have time freedom and you have some pretty cool stuff. Then we're going to kick it up a notch and we're going to figure out what specifically you need in order to have what I call a fancy life of stress-free abundance. I just wanted to come up with the fruitiest name possible there. But that's where you have the time freedom and you have the obnoxiously nice stuff that you might have always wanted and coveted. So we determine specifically what it takes financially for you to have that. Then what we're going to determine, and this is very important, is what you will provide to the marketplace in return for that, meaning the exact type of work specifically you're willing to do. And this, again, really critical because you could do a number of things, but we're going to figure out what it is that you do that's going to be fulfilling to you and that's not going to feel like work. So instead of being operating at like a 7 out of 10 on your performance, you could be 10 out of 10 all the time, which is very important. Then we're going to do a little bit of math, figure out how many customers you need per month in order to pull all of this stuff off. And then finally, we're just going to create a specific plan to make it all happen. So that is what we're going to do this week. So we have a pretty substantial training today, very important training. So I know a lot of people that take this course are already very high achievers. They're like, okay, this is great, but when do we get to the good stuff and the traffic and the money getting and all that kind of stuff? And I'll go ahead and tell you. So here's what's coming up in the course. Next week, we're going to perfect your offer and your curriculum. That is to say, we're going to figure out specifically what you're going to sell and how you're going to deliver it. Week number 3, we're going to figure out your perfect market to sell to. And these are going to be the people who are most likely to pay you the most right now and to benefit the most from what you have, as well as who you're most likely compatible with in terms of your clientele. So every time you deal with your customers, it excites you and you enjoy the conversations with them as opposed to being, well, I got to talk to this guy about this stuff. I'm sure you've been there, and that's not a fun place to be. So it's very important to choose your perfect market, also from a marketing perspective. So week number 4, We're going to work on creating your results in advance webinar. That's a webinar similar to the one that you saw, which led you to invest in this course. That's where you demonstrate that you can help people by actually helping them and then have them asked to be your customer. A very good way to do business, in my opinion. Week number 5, we're going to focus on setting up your tech stuff, meaning getting your webinar registration pages made, having them integrate with your CRM system, and then placing your ads and getting some traffic. The tech stuff is actually a lot easier than you may think, and I really chunk it down into very, very simple processes for you. I currently do all of my own tech stuff, so and I've got the brain capacity of a 7-year-old thanks for the 20 consecutive years of hardcore partying I did in my life. So if I can do it, I'm pretty sure you can too, right? At week number 6, we're going to talk about getting money before your webinar even occurs, and we're going to talk about making sure that they show up for your webinar, because what's the point of having people register, and what's the point of having this awesome results in advance webinar if nobody shows up, right? So that's what we talk about in week number 6. And in week number 7, we talk about what to do with the people who don't buy while they're on the webinar. Because let's face it, as good as we want to be and as good as we will become, most people who come to our webinars aren't going to buy. Well, there's still hope for them yet, right? So I'll give you some strategies and really some cut and paste type promotions that you can use to sell things to these people in a cool fashion that's not pushy, selling to them in a way that further adds value to their lives, and really, again, always reinforces that position that you want to have, which is that of trusted advisor. So we'll begin today's training with a question that I'd like to ask you, and I learned this question by studying a teacher whose name is Dan Sullivan, who I recommend you check out after this class. I don't want you to get any division of focus or diversion of focus on this class, but once you're done with this class, I think it's really worth investigating whether or not you could learn anything from Dan Sullivan's teachings. I really enjoy him. Here's a question that he asked that helps people sort of get ready to plan the future. And the question is, if we were having this conversation 1 year from today, looking back over the past year, what has to happen in your business for you to feel happy with your progress? And I'd like you to take a minute and just write down the very first thing that comes to mind. So what's likely going to happen is you're going to have an answer that's probably going to be a little bit vague, and the rest of our training is going to be spent refining how to really make that vague answer that you may or may not have. Who knows? Maybe your answer is going to be perfect, right? There is really no way to get it wrong, by the way. But the rest of our training is going to be really how to take that answer, make it more specific, and then turn it into reality. So that's what we're going to work on for the rest of our time together today. So usually, in answering the question, most people will immediately gravitate towards money. They'll say, well, a year from now, I want to be making $1 million a year or whatever, right? And typically, they don't give a specific answer, as in a specific dollar figure. You know, they might just say, I want to make 3 times more or whatever. Or in rare circumstances, when they do provide a specific dollar figure, there's no reason for it. It's just arbitrarily calculated. So they might say, I want to make $1 million, you know, and there's no like, well, why do you want to make $1 million? What does that represent? What are you going to do with the money? It may very well be that $1 million isn't enough, and they're building this plan based on something that's not enough. Or it may also be that it's not even remotely necessary for them to work that hard, that they can have the exact life they want with less. Either way can happen, and either way is perfectly okay. And in almost every time, one of those 2 circumstances, or rather one of those 3 circumstances will occur. They won't be specific in the amount, or the amount is just arbitrarily calculated and is either way more than necessary or not nearly enough, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to help you answer that question fully. By we, I mean me and you. And we'll address the income goals, of course, but we're also going to address something far more important, which is your life. And I know that sounds really big and grandiose, doesn't it? So let me kind of bring that back home here outside of the realm of like, you know, life coachiness, right? That's not what I'm trying to do here. Here's why I say that. Because we, and especially in the first few years, because we invest so much time and effort and energy into our businesses, we're basically trading a big chunk of our life for our success, right? I know for me, it took 13 years for me to get where I am today, and I worked for a lot of those years constantly. So I traded, in many aspects, 13 years for the material success that I've experienced today, and that's normal, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. I actually would rather you not have to go through that. I'm going to shorten your curve a little bit here. I never did. If I had done what we're doing now 13 years ago, I would have had a dramatically different output, right? But I think you get the point. Because our business is so entangled in our lives, it's important to get that business perfect, or else that big chunk of our life is off. And also, because we often grow to identify ourselves with our business, and often, at least to a degree, we allow our profession to define who we are as people, it's critically important to design our business to be one that not only enriches us financially, but also fulfills us on other levels. And the reason this is important is because if we don't do it, we're out of balance. We're investing a tremendous amount of effort and energy into a thing that simultaneously provides us, hopefully, with the money we want while being something unfulfilling. And if we don't do this right, we'll end up sabotaging the business. So again, this work that we're doing right now is critically important. It's very important that you really pay close attention and participate with me in this section of our training if you want to have the result, which will be a very stress-free and fulfilling business which rewards you immensely financially and both personally. So very few people really plan this aspect of their businesses out. And because of that, like I just said, they end up with businesses that are very stressful. And as a result, they end up unconsciously sabotaging their businesses because they inherently know that if they grow the business, that will mean they ultimately create more stress and unhappiness. And I'm wondering now if this, especially if you are one of the students that are already successful, if this has ever happened to you, right? Like, well, I don't want to get, I could get more clients here, but if I get more clients, then I have to do more of this stuff that's no fun, right? Well, it's normal. So if this has ever occurred or is occurring in your business in your life now, it's totally normal. And this because no one has taken the time to sit down with you and say, well, let's figure out what you really want. What really makes you happy? Who do you want to work with? What's your very best work? So that's what we're going to do today. Excuse me while I drink water. I don't talk very much as a person, so when I do these trainings, I get very dehydrated. So if you hear me drink lots of water, kind of bear with me, All right, so the law to live by. Hell of a title for a slide. Here we go. Before we even think about the money that you want to make, right? So I know you enrolled in this class to make more money, but before we even consider that, we need to understand that unless we fully embrace the Frank Kern rule of business success and overall fulfillment, the money that you're going to make is going to be worthless to you because you won't be enjoying your life, right? So the law, the Frank Kern law, or Frank Kern rule of business success and overall fulfillment states the following. A successful and fulfilling business is one that safely and consistently pays you what you want in return for doing stuff that's fun and avoiding doing stuff that sucks, right? So pretty simple law, but there's a lot there, right? So let me give you some definitions that are within this law for total clarity. Here we go. First of all, you'll notice I said safely and consistently provides you with what you want, right? So safely and consistently means that the business activities that you're doing, your product or your marketing practices or whatever, they provide first and foremost no risk of damage to your reputation and no risk of regulatory or legal attack, right? So what you're doing is you're not doing anything in the gray area where, yeah, it's okay, but technically maybe it's bending a regulation or you could come under regulatory scrutiny. We want to completely eliminate anything like that. So that's what safely means, right? Or could potentially damage your reputation, right? So if you're making a lot of money from working with a certain joint venture partner, for example, but that joint venture partner is a little bit sketchy and now you're associated with that person, well, that's not safe because it could potentially damage your reputation, right? So we need to eliminate all of that stuff. Now, the other flip side here, consistently. Consistently means that this business predictably and consistently pays you. And the reason this is important is because it will provide you with one of your 6 basic human needs, which is the need for certainty, right? So who wouldn't want certainty when it comes to a category of life so extremely important as your income, right? So those 2 words are very, very important, and they encompass a lot in this rule of overall business and success and fulfillment, right? So we said we want a business that safely and consistently provides you with what you want. So let's define that now. What you want is the income which will provide you with the specific things that you want, plus the time, freedom, and lifestyle that you want, right? So in order for us to do that, obviously we have to define what those specific things are, and we have to define what that lifestyle is. Otherwise, it's like getting on a plane and saying, I want to go to California, and then ending up disappointed when you land in Compton instead of San Diego. You know, you have to know exactly what you want. So we're going to do that today. Also, stuff that's fun. You know, you might want to think that stuff that's fun means you get paid to play hacky sack all day or something. I have no idea where the hacky sack reference came from, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, just random hacky sack reference, right? But what I mean in this context is that you're doing your very best work. And the type of work that can be considered your very best work is the work that you would probably do for free because you enjoy it so much. So I'll tell you, for me, my very best work, the type of work that I would do for free, I'm going to have to sneeze in a minute. Sorry about that. My God, you know, you record these things, and naturally that's the time you have to sneeze, you know. So this is the type of stuff you do for free anyway. This is the type of thing where if you're at a party and you end up talking about a certain topic that's business related or whatever, and you just enjoy it. People are like, God, that guy just went on and on and on about that. That's the kind of stuff that is often your very best work. For me, my very best work is taking people who are successful or who have something of massive value to sell and just giving them those fine little tweaks that yield huge results. You know, and the very, very, very best work for me personally is working with already successful $1 million plus high-paid advisor people and hatching with them what I refer to as evil schemes, which obviously they're not really evil, that's like a joke, you know, but helping them come up with promotions and ways to get more clients and affect more people positively. So everyone has their own definition of what their very best work is, and we'll figure it out for you in this class. I have a little process that we'll go through that do it. So now we'll define the stuff that sucks. The stuff that sucks is the work that you're not good at. That which you find tedious or stressful, or that which confuses you. So for me, it's things like coding, you know, like building the opt-in forms and Infusionsoft, setting up the order page, stuff like that. That's stuff that sucks for me. I'm not good at it. I find it tedious. I often screw it up, and it just is a hassle, right? So what we want to do, basically, is safely and consistently get paid whatever the amount of money you determine you want is for doing your very best work and not doing the stuff that sucks. And if we can do that, then you've got a hell of a business and an excellent, outstanding, very, very fulfilling life professionally, which often leads to you having a very successful and fulfilling life outside of your business because the two are so often interconnected. Everyone's had those times when you're stressed out at work and you come home and now it affects your home life. Well, we're going to eliminate that. So you're stoked and happy at work, and therefore that positively affects your home life. So here's why this is so important, as if I haven't really, you know, flogged that point enough, right? Answering the question and understanding the law gives you absolute clarity about what you want. Now, because you have this clarity, you'll no longer have an abstract and frustrating feeling of simply wanting more, quote unquote, right? Instead, you'll know specifically what you want, what you're willing to do to get it, and what you're not willing to do. And as a result of this clarity, now you have confidence about the future because you're no longer using, I call them RAM processes in your brain. You're no longer running all these extra processes in your brain trying to define the quote unquote more. You're no longer having to focus on stuff you don't want to do. You know exactly what it is that fulfills you and have a very solid and detailed plan to get there. And as a result of this confidence and clarity, you will now eliminate any need for quote-unquote motivation. You'll eliminate all overwhelm, and instead you'll be left with one thing, which is drive, which is the drive to accomplish what it is that you want. So clarity and confidence minus overwhelm equals drive, basically. So imagine waking up in the day just being driven to get started, knowing specifically, here's the mission for today, here's exactly what I want to do, here's why, and here's how I'm going to do it. And imagine doing that within the context of all the work that you're doing is work that you enjoy anyway, and now kick it up a notch by working with people who you really, really enjoy being with. Imagine having clients that you would hang out with anyway. I'll go ahead and confess to you, the whole reason I do these meetings that are associated with this class is just so we can hang out together. There's really no necessity to it. It's not like we have to get together for me to help you. I just like doing it, in the context that we do. So I want you to have that type of relationship with your clientele, and you can. So let's go ahead and get started now with turning all of these abstracts into a reality, right? We'll begin with the most important part, which is your very best work. See, I bet you thought I was going to say the money, but the money is secondary to you doing your very best work. And actually, once you step into doing your very best work, lots of people find that the money sort of comes automatically. Naturally, we're not going to leave that to chance. We're going to formulaically go out there and get it for you, but it's important. So here's a question I have for you. In your business, what is the one thing you do above all others that gives you the greatest joy while simultaneously providing the biggest value to your marketplace? Now, I want to notice something here. Providing the biggest value to the marketplace, right? And the reason this is so important is because in some cases, you might have multiple answers, or you might be confused. You may find that you're exceptionally good at something very valuable, but you're not satisfied by doing it. If this is the case, just write down what is bringing the most value to the marketplace for now, and we can define and further discover what it is that you enjoy that falls in that category. Now, so here's the ideal. The ideal is you have something that you're both exceptionally good at, that you really enjoy, and it brings value to the marketplace. That's the perfect situation. If you have that, write it down. If you don't have it, write down the thing that you do that gives the biggest value to the marketplace. Because at the very least, that one thing is going to be the thing that is the most valuable, and that therefore is the thing you can charge the most for, right? And then we'll determine how to, within the context of that thing, find the fulfillment or shift where necessary, right? And if you have multiple answers, that's okay. As a matter of fact, you might want to do this little exercise here. If it didn't immediately come to mind, try this. Get a piece of paper out. By the way, you're going to need just a little notepad or something going through this training. I considered making handouts, but nobody ever downloads and prints the damn handouts. They say, I'll do it later, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to force you now to get up and go get a piece of paper and a pen if you haven't gotten one already. So I'm just going to wait for a second and take a little sip of water while you find a legal pad and a pen, or some printer paper or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or perhaps some pink construction paper if you're a little fancy. Okay, cool. So you have your paper. Now go ahead, on your piece of paper, just make 4 columns. And one column, you can obviously see where we're going by looking at the slide here. One column, you're going to write the activity you're good at. The next column is the fulfillment index. The next is the value to the marketplace. And the next is the profitability index. Now these indexes and value to the marketplace number, we're not going to get too scientific here. We're just going to write down on a scale of 1 to 10 where they rank in fulfillment, value, and profitability overall for you, right? So first thing we want to do is we just want to write down the activities in your business that you're good at. Stuff that's not hard, right? Or even if it's hard, stuff that just provides really, really good results, right? So for me, I've written down 4 things, and this doesn't have to, you can just write, your list could be a million things, right? So for me, I could write copywriting, making videos, video scripting, offer creation, risk reversal, all manner of stuff. I just kind of picked the 4 big ones within my little business personally. So for me, I wrote down launches, private clients, HPA coaching, which is what we're doing now, high paid advisor coaching, and then HPA $1 million plus consulting, which is where I would do one-on-one consulting for people who have businesses that sell high paid advisor / service products that are doing over $1 million, right? So now let's go take them one by one, and I want you to do this in your business. I'm telling you my stuff is an example, obviously, and we'll go through these various sections within this grid. So the first thing that you want to do is you take your first thing you're good at, in my case is launches, and you just write down the first number that comes to mind in your fulfillment index. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, how much fulfillment and enjoyment do you get from doing that work? So for me, I find launches, believe it or not, even though I'm exceptionally good at them, well, tooting of the own horn there, I suppose, but let's face it, I'm really good at them, right? But who knew? I really get about a 3 out of 10 fulfillment level from launches, and the reason why is because there's so much work, and they're very, very hectic and stressful, And the big thing about a launch is if it's not a blockbuster, you're kind of screwed because your affiliates aren't going to promote your next one, right? If they don't make a lot of money, then, well, forget about it. It's real hard to get them and go like, hey, I know the last launch we did sucked, but this one's going to be good, right? So all that kind of stress and hecticness isn't for me. So I give it a fulfillment index of 7. Now, next category, value to the marketplace. I'm sorry, I give it a fulfillment index of 3, rather. Next category, value to the marketplace. Well, a launch, if done properly, can give a lot of value to the marketplace, right? So if your pre-launch materials are designed to prove to people that you can help them by actually helping them, they're going to give a significant value to the marketplace. The reason I didn't give that a 10 is because, well, 2 things. One is you can't really control, as much as I would like to, how that pre-launch material is being delivered. And the reason that's the case is because you have affiliates, right? So if you end up having a lot of affiliates, well, they could be sending your pre-launch material to people who could care less, right? Or they could be saying the wrong thing and framing it improperly. So because you don't have control over exactly who's getting the pre-launch material, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 on the overall value to the marketplace. This is excluding the products themselves, right? I'm just talking about the launch stuff that you give out. Now, the profitability index, I give a 6, which might be a surprise. You might say, well, man, launches are supposed to be $1 million plus things. Well, they are, but often you're at the end of the day exchanging time for dollars because you work like a dog in a launch, and then you get this finite sum of money, which we'll say is a couple $1,000,000, and then, of course, most of your sales are done by affiliates, so you're paying out half of that, and then you got your refund rate, which is always higher than normal, simply because of the way launches go. People are in such a frenzy to buy that often they're either knowingly buying to get the bonuses and have already planned to send the stuff back, which is a big thing that happens in the internet marketing community, or they're like, they get so excited and they're like, no, what the hell did I buy this thing for? I don't really need this. This isn't what I want. I just got excited and caught up in the excitement, and that's fine. So your refund rates are usually higher than normal. So at the end of the day, that multi-million-dollar payday is actually whittled down a lot smaller. Now, the flip side of that is, of course, which is why we have a 6 instead of like a 3 on the profitability index. The flip side of that is if done properly, you will have built up a significant amount of goodwill in your marketplace, and you've got a new list, which you can then continue to monetize forever. So for me, I gave it a profitability index of 6, right? And none of this has to be like rocket science. This is just for your own personal planning. So next thing we do is we take private clients in my business, right? I used to. I no longer do anymore, and I think you can figure out why. So the fulfillment index on a private client relationship, this is a relationship where I'm doing all of the work for them, right? That's 2 for me. And the reason why is because I'm working like hell. I'm having to do everything for them, and it's not my business. Now, the value to the marketplace, meaning the value to the private client, is a 10 out of 10, because they're getting everything done for them, and my guarantee is always ridiculous. I have a double your money back guarantee in these cases. So obviously they can't really lose. That's a huge value to the marketplace. You'll notice my profitability index is very low. My private client fee right now is $250,000, and I generate significantly more than that for them. My average private client has done over $5 million from our business relationship. But for me, I'm only keeping a couple $100,000, so I'm creating $5 million plus in sales for these people on average, literally, but I'm keeping a couple $100,000. So the profitability index is very low. So even though it's very valuable to the marketplace, a 10 out of 10, well, it's a 2 on fulfillment and a 3 on profitability. HPA coaching, what we're doing right now. Fulfillment index is 8, which you might be going, well, gosh, Frank, why are you doing this with us if you don't enjoy it? Now, 8 out of 10 is unbelievably good, right? So 10 out of 10 is like it's the type of stuff that you just freak out about. It's so much fun. 7 out of 10 is it's pretty fun. 8 out of 10 is yeah, I could do this forever and I'd be satisfied type of thing, right? So you might say, well, how come it's only an 8? Well, the reason why is because I actually enjoy a lot the one-on-one environment. And in the HBA group coaching, I don't have that, but it is very lucrative. Another reason it's an 8 out of 10 is as much as I try, sometimes I'll accidentally get a client or two in the classes who shouldn't be in the classes. And that's by no means a slight to the client by any means. It could be someone who simply doesn't have anything to sell, doesn't have anything to offer them. It's okay if you don't have anything to sell right now, but if you don't have any skill, then we're in trouble, right? So sometimes someone will sneak in there and say they've got a skill, and then later during the class figure out they don't have a skill. And it takes a lot out of me to get them to that point, because usually these are the people that ask 20 million questions and, put off actually taking any action because they're afraid to finally face the fact they have nothing to offer. So the fact that those type of clients can occasionally sneak in diminishes my fulfillment index from performing this type of work, but not so significantly that it's not awesome, right? Now, value to the marketplace. You would think, well, how come it's not a 10 out of 10? By God, I just bought this from you. Why is it a 10 out of 10? Well, the reason why is the same reason that the fulfillment index is skewed a little bit there, because occasionally wrong client will get in, right? And you'll learn more about wrong client in a minute. That's by no means to say they're a bad person, but it's just not a good fit. And sometimes, even though I interview them, they'll be sneaky with me in the interview. They'll be so excited to take the class that they'll be like, yeah, I'm really good. I just had this happen. I had a client saying they were really good at social media, helping businesses with social media, and then we discovered they'd never done anything in their life, and they didn't even know how to operate their own Facebook account, right? Well, I took them at their word, and I later determined I was totally unable to help them and actually asked them not to participate anymore and gave them back their money, right? So as you can see, sometimes they can sneak in on you, right? So that's why it's a 9 out of 10 in value. I can't provide value to those people, and they can sneak into being in my marketplace. Therefore, what do you know? I can't really put it in all sincerity a 10 out of 10 on the value to the marketplace. If I have the right client, definite 10 out of 10 value. Like if you're listening to this and you have something of value to offer and you're willing to do the work and advertise, then you're 10 out of 10, no problem. But if I missed you in my filtration process and you snuck in here and you don't have anything valuable to offer and you refuse to advertise, then well, you're going to be a 0 out of 10. So that kind of skews my numbers, right? Now the profitability index is at 9. And the reason it's at 9 for me is because I think there's other work I could do that is more profitable long term, right? So now we'll go to the High Paid Advisor $1 Million Plus Consulting. You'll notice this has 3 10s across the board, right? So that is where I would be working with people who have, I'll now refer to this as our type of business, people who are selling very valuable advice, very valuable consulting, or very valuable services, such as done-for-you marketing services or what have you, or other consultants, right? And they're already successful and they're doing $1 million plus businesses already. Now, this is the type of work where I would talk to them several times a month and we would work individually, one-on-one together, to come up with ideas on how to get more clients and how to even greater serve the clients they have. So for me, that's a 10 out of 10. I discovered this, by the way, by working with my high-paid advisor clients. When I do the one-on-one consults, oftentimes I have people who are already successful and I really don't want the damn conversation. And I end up talking to them. I end up enjoying our conversation so much that I would just do it anyway, right? So for me, it's a 10 out of 10 to work with very already successful people in a business that I intimately understand and helping them scheme and come up with ideas. At the end of the day, my favorite activity is brainstorming ideas to get more money. I just absolutely love it. For me, it's way more than anything else. Quite frankly, I shouldn't even tell you this. I would do it anyway for free and often do. I just absolutely, it's what I'm made to do, right? I'm a schemer. I help people scheme within the context of this type of business. Now, again, you see value to the marketplace, 10 out of 10. So the reason why is because these people are already successful. So that eliminates the possibility of someone sneaking in that actually doesn't have anything to offer, and then we have to determine, oh man, I ended up with a bad client and I asked them to leave the class. Never any hard feelings, by the way. I just have their best interest. Like, look, I feel weird keeping your money. I can't help you, So, but these people, no chance of that. They're already $1 million plus businesses. So these guys who are already successful, when I'm able to go in there and just give them little tips and tweak their businesses, it's a 10 out of 10. In fact, my guarantee with that is double your money, right? Those clients, I say, look, we work together. You get a positive ROI on working with me, or I literally give you double your money back, no questions asked. So 10 out of 10, huge. Profitability index for me, again, is 10 out of 10 as well, because they pay me an exorbitant amount of money plus royalties. So you might be saying, well, how come you're doing coaching and that? Well, the caveat to that type of work is I'm very, very selective with who I work with. So the coaching leads to those clients. Now, please don't fear. This whole class isn't a pitch for you to become a $1 million plus client by any means, but just to give you an idea of how my business works. And you might find the same. You might end up doing group coaching and then taking a small portion of your group coaching clients who will become your paid monthly continuity-based consulting clients, which would therefore eliminate the need for you to do group coaching altogether, which is likely where my business will go once I've hit 35 clients. I will not be able to do anything but work exclusively with those clients. So that's kind of my big picture business goals in a nutshell. So yours will be different from mine, right? But what you want to do is list the stuff you're good at and then do this little fulfillment, value to the marketplace, and profitability index. And what you're looking for is the activities that have the highest total score. So ideally, you want a 10 out of 10, right? And I wish this for you that you do have it, but if you don't, it's okay, right? Not having a 10 out of 10 is fine. Like, an 8 plus out of 10 is great. It's really, really good. Like for me, I could do HPA coaching, this model. I could teach this class the rest of my life and be very, very fulfilled. No problem, right? So don't be discouraged if you don't have 10 out of 10. We're just looking right now to filter out what your very best work is. So now once you've done this, I want you to take your top pick, maximum of 2, and just write it or them down on a sheet of paper. Just take another sheet of paper out and write very best work, and then under it, write those top maximum of 2 activities. If you only have 1, that's even better, right? You have more clarity if you only have 1. If you have more than 2, then just pick your top 2 favorites, right? So now we know what your very best work is as a global concept. Now, by no means have we determined what your offer is going to be and how to translate that work into money, or you might actually have that idea already. I don't know, because we're not together. But we will know as the class goes on. But now you know the category in which you thrive the most. You're fulfilled, you're providing the best value, and it's very profitable, right? So our mission now is to turn that into something to sell. But we're not nearly done by any means. So we have another half of this equation, which is the people. So the other half of your very best work is going to be the people you work with. And the reason this is important is because if you do your very best work with the wrong people, you're still hosed, right? Like I had that social media person who took this class, which is some of my very best work I can do, is this type of class, right? And they snuck in somehow by telling me they were a social media expert, but in reality they weren't. They were a biz op seeker with absolutely nothing to offer. They didn't even know how to set up their own Facebook page. They didn't even know how to set up their own Facebook ad, right? But they were calling themselves a social media expert. So I was working with the wrong people in that context. So while I was doing my very best work, I was unfulfilled because it was extremely draining dealing with this client, right? Well, if you don't prevent that, you run the risk of that happening consistently, which causes your business to be no fun, right? So it's very important to identify who your best people are. So let's go ahead and do that now by filling out this little graph. And this, you don't have to make a table like I did. It just kind of looks cooler in a slide. Right now, I just want you to list at least 9 criteria that the right people, that your best clients would have, right? And this isn't, by the way, market selection. Right now, this is just you figuring out who you want to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to take your best work, we're going to take your right people, and then we're going to run it through some more criteria to find the absolute perfect market that makes sense financially. But right now, let's just look at the right people, just who you would get charged up and jazzed by working with anyway, the type of people who fuel you and inspire you versus bring you down, right? So in my case, I chose people who have something to offer, right? You got to have that. I learned that the hard way by working with people who just said they had something but ended up didn't, right? So they got to have something to offer. That thing they are offering has to be like positive, right? So I don't want to work with anyone who's like, you know, how to start a hate blog for profit or something like that, right? So they have to be striving to make positive change. They have to be dedicated to helping others. Really big criteria for me is they have to be willing to work. I get extremely frustrated when I have clients who don't want to put forth the effort, who would rather like debate about what the best WordPress theme is, for example, instead of placing an ad, right? Or writing a sales letter or creating their criteria. That drives me crazy. So they have to be willing to work. They have to be selling massive transformational value, advice, or services. That's what MTV stands for. That means the end result of the advice that you're selling or the service you're providing is providing massive transformational value to your marketplace. So they have to be selling that. That's the right kind of people for me. They need to be willing and able to advertise. They need to be unafraid of adversity, which means that they need to realize that very often the advertisements aren't going to work at first and we need to mess with them. Very, very rarely do your ads instantly hit it out of the park. I mean, I've had it happen a couple times, but rarely. Usually it takes some testing, which is why we start small, right? So they need to be unafraid of that type of adversity. Ideally, they're already successful in some regard, whether it's financially or in their ability to at least implement and help other people through the stuff they have to sell, right? So if I have someone who doesn't already have a big business set up, well, okay. As long as they have the ability to successfully get the results for their clients, no problem, right? That's good. So already successful in one of those two regards, and I want them to be optimistic. And that optimism is just a positive. I just like that in terms of dealing with people. I'd much rather deal with optimistic versus pessimistic people, because optimistic people, when they hit the inevitable guaranteed roadblock, are a lot more pleasant to deal with than pessimistic people. Optimistic person will say, okay, well, that didn't work, but that's why we're testing, so let's test this. Where a pessimistic person would be like, well, it's just too hard, it doesn't work for me, my business is different, right? So these are my criteria. And that's a lot of criteria. And you might have a lot of criteria. You might have more than 9. It doesn't matter. What I want you to do is list them all, brainstorm them all out right now, and then we'll move on to our next step, which is to take the 3 most important criteria and write them down. So if you say, if you have a list of 20 criteria or something, it's going to be a very, very tiny group of people if they all have to meet every little aspect of the criteria. So take your 3 most important criteria and just put them on a piece of paper. And here's something you might notice. For the people that are taking the class, if you have 2 things that will fall in the category of your very best work, for example, I did, right? I have HPA coaching, which is teaching this, and then I have HPA $1 Million Plus consulting. Both of those I consider to be my very best work, right? So if you have 2 things that fall within your very best work that you are interested in pursuing, then you might want to have 2 sets of criteria, because each thing might require 2 different types of criteria. For example, the already financially successful is a must for my $1 Million Plus HPA consulting, but it is not a must for my HPA coaching, right? So I'm happy to take someone in an HPA coaching environment who's not already doing $1 million, provided they have something of value to offer, right? But for the consulting, it's a must, right? So I think you get the point. So go ahead and write down your 3 most important sets of criteria, and if you have 2 categories of very best work that you're willing to pursue, then go ahead and write, if necessary, your 3 different sets of criteria as they apply to those 2 categories of very best work. Great. So now we know the right criteria of who you're looking for, who you're looking to work with. Really, really important. If you have the wrong people, you're hosed. So let's talk about the wrong people and the wrong activities. So right now, what we've done so far is where you remember the law, right? The law of business success and fulfillment, which says you get paid predictably and safely and consistently what you want for doing stuff that's fun while avoiding stuff that sucks. So right now we've done a pretty good job of defining the stuff that's fun and the who we're going to do this fun stuff with, therefore making sure that it's fun. So now what we want to do is determine the stuff that sucks so you can banish it from your life. Typically what you're going to find is the stuff that sucks doesn't pay anyway, or pays less than the stuff that's cool. Therefore, if you replace the stuff that sucks with the stuff that's cool, you make more money just on that one little transition by itself. But let's get a little more detail. So, stuff that sucks, or wrong activities, to sound a little more professional, would be activity that's stressful to you, It would be activity that is dangerous to you in a professional sense. I don't mean like, professional kiteboarding or something. I mean like things that could get you in trouble or things that could hurt your reputation and things that could cause the association with the wrong people and so forth and so on. So activity that is dangerous. Activity that you find tedious is the wrong activity for you to be doing because it drains you and it's rarely very profitable. Activity that is unfulfilling, right? So stuff that's not tedious, but just kind of That's, you don't want to do stuff that's You want to do stuff that's and get paid a lot for it. Gotta love my professional, description here. Then of course we have the wrong people, right? So before we talk about the wrong people, I'll say one thing about them first, and then we'll move on. The wrong people, there's nothing wrong with these people. I'm not saying they're like bad people. They're just not a good match for you. So I want to make that clear. I'm not even remotely trying to tell you that there are bad people out there and we're better than anybody else or anything like that. So I think you get the idea. So let's talk now about counterproductive activities. Another little exercise. I want you to draw 4 more columns on your piece of legal paper or your piece of illegal paper, right? And label this little section counterproductive activities. And label each column with the following headings: stressful, dangerous, tedious, and unfulfilling. And start writing, right? So I've just listed 2 things under each column because there's not really a lot that I do in my business world, fortunately. But there's some stuff that could still be out there, right? So under stressful, I've listed continuity and launches. Now, continuity is stressful to me in the cases where I got to come up with a new thing every month, to try to re-dazzle people every month is a little bit stressful. I'd much rather just have a core group of people say, hey, go do this. They get some results. They say, okay, cool, now go do this. It's a lot easier for me than trying to make new newsletters or videos or all that kind of thing. In fact, I had a continuity program that I just shut down about a year and a half ago while it was still paying me in the neighborhood of $30,000 a month just because it was weirding me out. I'd run out of stuff to say and I didn't want to be an asshole and just rehash things, so I shut it down. So stressful for me, continuity. Launches, also stressful for the reasons I told you about, right? Now, the dangerous category, I put launches as well, and the reason I put launches as dangerous is because you can't control what your affiliates are saying. So, as you know, I had some FTC experience back in 2003, so I'm very, very sensitive to that. And you could potentially be liable for the claims that your affiliates make. And in a launch, a lot of times you don't know these guys, and you might have some random dude that signed up as your affiliates and starts telling everybody that they're going to get rich immediately upon purchasing your thing, all these kinds of things. So that makes it fall in the dangerous category for me, which, is counterproductive. I don't care for it. BizOp. Now, I don't do BizOp, but I don't want to sell to BizOp people or do anything that could even attract them accidentally. And the reason I consider that dangerous is because, again, I had that FTC experience, and regulatory agencies traditionally hate BizOp, right? I kind of hate BizOp too. Really, a lot of it is very cheesy. So I put that in the dangerous category. For tedious, I put web pages. Building web pages for me is a pain in the ass. I still do all of my own for now, but it sucks. And a lot of times it's so unfulfilling and tedious that I will deliberately just simply not do a promotion because I don't want to build the web page. Same with coding. So coding here means like I use Infusionsoft, which is greatest tool ever. I highly recommend it, but I don't really like setting it up. Not really hard at all. I mean, you press some buttons. It's just a pain in the ass. I find it tedious and not my thing, So that's what coding is for me. It's by no means like I'm writing program code. So unfulfilling, I also put launches. Just don't really get that big of a bang out of it. They don't do it for me. They were neat at first, but then it was like, okay, kind of mundane here. So unfulfilling. Web pages and coding, also unfulfilling. You can have the same thing in multiple, if not all, columns. That's okay. In fact, that's kind of what you're looking for, because when it happens, you see there are some things that are not going to fly, right? So you'll notice everything I have was in multiple columns, meaning it sucks really, really bad. So what we want to do now is we want to use the ERD process. So ERD stands for eliminate, reduce, or delegate. So the first thing we want to do right now, even if it's lucrative for you, I still recommend that you do this for your own safety and sanity, is you want to eliminate everything that's dangerous. right? Immediately. So it could be dangerous to your reputation or potentially get you in any kind of trouble, even if you think you're not doing anything wrong. You're like, well, if they only knew what I was really doing, they wouldn't get, get rid of it, quit doing it, be obnoxiously compliant with everything possible, and you'll live a much happier and stress-free life and ultimately make more money. So the first thing we want to do, everything that's in the dangerous column, get rid of it. Eliminate it from your life entirely, which I have, right? Now, you can also, I recommend, if you can do it and maintain the business, also get rid of everything immediately, meaning eliminate all activity that falls within 3 or more columns. And you can eliminate it by simply chopping it out of your business altogether, the way I did launches and the way I did attracting accidentally BizOp customers, right? Or you can get rid of it by delegating it. So if something is not dangerous, but it's stressful and it's unfulfilling and it's tedious, well, there's no need to eliminate from your business. I mean, after all, I need to have web pages and coding done, so I don't want to eliminate that. I just want to delegate it, right? So what you want to do with the rest of everything is reduce or delegate it, and if you can get away with it, eliminate it as well, right? So in my case, if you remember, let's see if I can get back here. There we go. If you can remember, everything was in multiple columns, right? So we had all of this stuff had to go. I determined to eliminate launches entirely. I just found them too stressful. I found them to be dangerous, even though that might be in my head. It doesn't matter. Your mind defines your life. Your state of mind defines your life, really. So, I got rid of them. BizOp, I determined immediately dangerous, and now I'm obnoxiously trying to repel BizOp clients. So, if you'll recall, even during the webinar that you saw, to join this program, I said I do not work with BizOp clients. This is not for you if you sell BizOp or if you're a business opportunity junkie. You just won't have it, right? So, and the only thing that's left for me really is to delegate web pages and coding, which I still haven't done because I'm not the best at heeding my own advice, but I plan to. And as a matter of fact, probably during the duration of this course, already found the guy, as a matter of fact. So there you go. So all that's left there is you'll see there's one thing that's not listed multiple times is continuity, and I decided to eliminate it, but I had the cash flow to be able to do it and not really miss that monthly income, right? So if we can cut these things out of our lives or delegate or reduce them, what happens is not only are you now focusing on and just not using your precious time, your only non-recoverable asset ever is your time, right? Not only are you no longer squandering that on stuff that weighs you down, you also no longer have the mental RAM being used, the mental bandwidth being used trying to either A, perform these tasks that fall in any of these 4 categories, or B, come up with ways to avoid and procrastinate performing these tasks, and thus C, worry about the fact that you haven't done these tasks and that you eventually got to do them. Usually, A and B, the procrastination and the worry takes up far more effort than actually even performing the tasks. But my position is, if they're that bad and require any of that sort of mental anguish, they should be eliminated, reduced, or delegated, right? So let's move ahead here. There we go. So now what I want you to do is do what we just said, right? On your sheet of paper, list all of the things under a heading called danger, and then list all your dangerous activities. Now make another column that says 2 strikes and list all other activities that are, list everything that's in 2 columns in that previous exercise in your 2 column strike, right? So for me, I would put launches and BizOp in the danger column. In the 2 strike column, I had launches were in there. I had websites and coding in there, so I would put those 2 in my 2 strike column. And in my 1 strike column, list everything else, the things that just fall in one category, right? So that would be for me the continuity. So our next step is now dealing with the wrong people. And again, the reason we listed that stuff out is so you can consciously say, okay, here are these problem cancers, basically, in my business I've got to cut out, right? So you want to get rid of those. But we're not nearly done, right? So I think I've made the case for identifying the wrong activity and eliminating, delegating, or reducing it by the mere virtue of your brain and your time will be freed up now to do the thing that you're good at that makes you money. But we haven't addressed the wrong people. So I want you to now write down, just on your same legal pad that you're working with, write wrong people on a heading, and then just write the characteristics of the type of people you don't want to attract. Okay, so For me, it was opportunity junkies. Like I said, I just don't want any biz op people. There's nothing wrong with them. And I was a biz op person once, and I overcame my biz op addiction and all that. So, but I was a dipshit back then, right? So I don't want to really work with any of those guys. They typically don't take action. And the ones who sell biz op stuff, I don't want the regulatory scrutiny. I don't want them to be like, Kern told me to, you know what I mean? I just don't want anything to do with it. I want to perpetuate that. Delusional people I define as people who think that they can just automatically become successful by mere virtue of me telling them something and refuse to grasp the reality that they have to work. I refuse to work with people with nothing of value to sell. I just don't want to do it. I can't help them, really. So it's not my very best work. If you remember, when we were talking about our very best work activities, there was that column which was the value to marketplace index. Well, no matter how good my stuff is, if they have nothing of value to sell, my value to marketplace index is a 0 for them. So I certainly don't want to work with them. Anyone who refuses to implement, well, again, my value to them is 0. So why would I want to waste my time on people that I can't help, right? There's plenty of money in the world. There are plenty of people that you can help. So if our mission is to both enrich ourselves and others by getting paid handsomely to help them by doing our very best work, then if we deal with the wrong people, we're failing. We're enriching ourselves to a degree. A lot of the people who we can't help will want their money back, right? So we're not enriching ourselves that much, but we're not helping them at all. So we're squandering the opportunity. We're squandering the gift we've been given. So it's very important to always work with the right people because this is a two-sided equation. We get paid and we pay it forward by providing the results that are desired. And the more results you give, the more you're referred and so on and so forth. So next step for me was get rich quick and biz op people. I want to avoid people who don't want to talk to anybody because in this HPA model, we talk to people, right? Like you and I are going to talk on Thursday on the Q&A call. So if someone doesn't want to do that type of thing, then they're going to get 0 value from this model because they're going to never talk to their customers and their customers aren't going to get results. Broke people obviously can't buy my stuff. The wrong people for me are people who sell real world stuff like auto parts. So a dude sells carburetors is not going to get a lot of value out of this course unless he's wanting to take that expertise on how he built that business and help other businesses or something. But I can't help him sell more carburetors, And then people who are non-converted to direct response. So someone could be all of the criteria they could meet, but they could hate direct response advertising, such as advertising where you actually ask someone to do something as opposed to having a logo and a slogan, and I wouldn't be able to do any good for them. If they reject direct response as their marketing religion, I cannot help them, right? So these are my wrong people. So what I want you to do is write down your wrong characteristics, right? And just put it under the heading right people, and then take the 3 worst ones of this absolute deal killers. For me, they're all deal killers, right? But take at least like the 3 biggest ones and circle them and put them in a separate little category. So now that we've done all of this stuff, which seems a bit tedious, right? But you're going to see in a minute by the end of this training, you're going to have a very concrete plan. So as a matter of fact, let me show you something. What we have is the beginning of the answer to the question, right? Which is, if we were to have this conversation 1 year from today, looking back over the past year rather, what would have happened in order for you to feel happy with your business, right? So here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to answer that question. So you can begin answering the question with a statement. You can say, 1 year from now, I will, and then insert your very best work. So in my case, 1 year from now, I will teach the high-pays advisor model to successful entrepreneurs. Now, see, right, for me, I'm inserting my criteria. So you take your 3 good people criteria, your top 3, and you put it here. So 1 year from now, I will teach the high-pays advisor model to successful entrepreneurs who sell something of massive transformational value and who are willing to advertise, right? Boom. And now we list our dangerous opportunities. I will under no circumstances, and then you list your dangerous and 2 strikes activities. So for me, I will say, under no circumstances will I perform launches or build and code my own web pages. And I will have reduced, delegated, and possibly eliminated, and now you fill in any of the 1 strike activities. So for me, that would be continuity, which of course I don't have anyway. But I'll put it down there anyway just to complete the sentence. So the whole statement reads, 1 year from now, I will sell high-paid advisor group coaching to successful entrepreneurs who sell something of massive transformational value and are willing to advertise. I will, under no circumstances, do product launches I will, under no circumstances, do product launches, engage in any type of business opportunity marketing or work with business opportunity people, or build and code my own web pages. And I will have reduced, delegated, and possibly eliminated any form of continuity. Right? So that's my statement. So now we have a pretty clear picture. We know exactly what we want to do, who we want to work with, and equally as importantly, we know what we're not going to do, which is critical, right? Because you don't want to get tricked into doing the stuff that sucks, or else you get bogged down. So if you'll remember, I have two things which I consider to be my best work: teaching this model, which we're doing now, and consulting for the $1 million plus HPA businesses. So I actually wrote down the statements. I just did them on the fly just then. But here's what I came up with when I wrote it down prior to recording this. Statement number 1. 1 year from now, I'll teach the HPA model to entrepreneurs who are selling MTV advisor services, are willing to work, and are willing and able to exercise. Right? So that's for the high-paid advisor model, which I still plan to do over the course of the year. I'll also be adding, of course, what I consider to be the pinnacle of my performance and best work, which is the $1 million plus consulting. So statement number 2 is 1 year from now, I'll provide consulting for entrepreneurs who are already selling over $1 million of HPA advisor services per year and who are willing and able to advertise, right? So that is the pinnacle right there of this, doing the stuff that's cool with the right people, right? And I didn't write out the stuff that I refused to do because I just told it to you a minute ago, right? So that's fairly self-explanatory. But it's important now that you take the time to actually do this, to actually write this down. Don't just listen to me and nod your head and go, okay, yeah. Like, write it down, because it's important to be able to look at this on a daily basis. Look, I know you and I are the same, right? We both love business. We both love the internet. We're both part of the same community, and that means we both get pitched 9 billion different things to distract us. Now, my friend Brendan Burchard came by a couple months ago, actually. I have this place at my house I call the Porch of Awesomeness. And what I like to do is regularly have people who I consider to be amazing come visit me and sit on the Porch of Awesomeness. So Brendan was sitting on the Porch of Awesomeness. We were talking about goal setting and fulfillment and way more than just money making, because there's so many opportunities out there. And he gave a great quote, and I forgot who he got it from. But he said he has this taped to his monitor. And the quote is, "The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing." Which of course translates into only focus on the main thing and ignore all the other crap, right? So if you have that statement handy where you can look at it every morning, so 1 year from now, I will teach the HPA model to entrepreneurs who are selling MTV advisor services, are willing to work, and are willing and able to advertise, it keeps you focused. And it keeps you from paying attention to the latest thing that says, hey, if you press 3 buttons, you'll make $1 billion on ClickBank or whatever, right? So while that statement is well and good, it by no means is the global prescription for the problem of not having a clear vision. So we certainly have significantly more work to do, so we might as well get cracking and do it. So now you know what your best and most effortless work is. Critical, right? I mean, if you're doing that for a living, you're not really working for a living, which is great. You also know specifically who you want to work with. That's important, once again, because if you work with the right people, your interaction with them fuels you rather than draining you. You've also decided to eliminate dangerous activities from your business altogether. You're delegating or eliminating any two-strike activities, such as things that are both unfulfilling and stressful and tedious, right? Anything over 2, get rid of, delegate or eliminate. And then you've agreed to delegate, eliminate, or reduce any one-strike activities. So it's not a super big priority that you get rid of it, but you're still going to at least reduce it or have someone else handle it to the best of your ability. Now, by doing this, we freed you up to focus on that which is most fulfilling to you, most valuable to your marketplace, and will easily, if it hasn't already, proven to be the most lucrative activity you could possibly do, right? So you've also decided to completely banish the wrong people from your business life forever. This is, of course, immediately eliminating the biggest hassle you'll face, which, of course, is problem customers and unhappy customers. Now, You also have a general concept of who your target market is, which is good. Now, we don't have the precise concept at all. This isn't the target marketing exercise, but you've got an idea of the type of people. Now, in our next segments, when we cover target marketing, we're going to figure out where they live and really, really hone that in. So we've done pretty good, but we still have a lot of work to do because we haven't discussed what drew you to this course, likely, which, of course, is the money. Yeah, so now it's time to specifically decide how much monthly revenue you want your business to consistently provide. Key words here are monthly and consistently. So by creating a monthly goal as opposed to annual or quarterly, we have something that's quick and easy to measure, right? It's staring us in the face. Today's the 1st. We got 30 days to hit this goal, right? So we break that down into 4 weekly milestones to hit the goal, and it's really right there. It's very, very easy to measure, and it's very chunked down. And, of course, by focusing on consistency, we're priming our minds to create a real business as opposed to like a series of promos such as launches and schemes such as, well, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. Instead, we're like, I'm just going to create this business, a real business, that consistently produces this monthly goal, right? So here's how we're going to figure all this stuff out. We're going to do it in multiple steps. And our first step is going to be freedom. So the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out exactly how much money you need to make in order just to maintain your current lifestyle. So however you're living right now, obviously is to some degree acceptable to you. It might be awesome, right? So at the very least, we want to figure out how to just maintain and not have to go to doing anything that sucks or decrease your quality of life. So the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out, what you got to make to pay the rent, feed the kids, car payment, mortgage, insurance, phone, internet, the basics, right? So we're going to tally that up and we're going to write it down. And I urge you, I demand it really. Should have done it in all caps. I hereby officially demand that you figure this number out to the penny. You need to figure out exactly how much you gotta make in order to maintain your current standard of living. And the reason this is important is because if this is all we do in this class, this is the only thing you accomplish is just making this happen, finding out what you gotta have to live and then just making that come in, then at the very least, we will have given you total time freedom. Because you'll be living normally, quote unquote, for what your standard of living is now, but you'll be doing what you love and you'll be working with the people who are right for you and you won't be doing stuff that sucks. So at the very least, that is our least acceptable goal. But if we got to take something, we'll take that. Now we want to do better, but first let's just figure out what our baseline is, right? So let me help you brainstorm it. Here's some of the ideas of stuff you gotta pay. And everyone's financial picture is different, but the biggies are like rent and mortgage, car insurance, your water bill, your basic clothes every month. I don't mean your shopping sprees at Gucci or whatever, unless you do that every month. Your date nights with the missus or the husband or the life partner or whatever it may be, right? We got to factor that in to your current quality of life, your power bill, your groceries, kids' school bills, school stuff, you got to buy them their machine guns, right? I can't believe I officially take that back. That was very tasteless of me, but sometimes sometimes I'll just go there. You got to watch me. Your health insurance, right? Your home phone, your cell phone, your cable bill, your heat, your car payments, your interwebs, like the actual internet access that you pay for, and any credit card debt you have. So those are like 16 main categories of expenses that most people gotta pay every month. You might have more. Write them all down. I'm not talking about the stuff that you want to pay, right? And I'm not talking about the private jet that you might want or whatever. I'm talking about the stuff you got right now that if you don't pay it, you're screwed. So I want you to make a list of all that kind of stuff, the monthly expense of it all. And now I want you to take the total and write it down in your notebook under the heading freedom number. This is very, very important you do this because we're about to do some math and really, really have a tremendous amount of clarity on not only how to give you the freedom and the stuff you want, but also how to set you up for long-term wealth, which is pretty cool, actually. So now we got freedom number. Next thing we want to do is we want the fancy number. We want the fancy number, super. Okay, so let's talk about the stuff that you want, right? And let's focus on the big stuff and try for now to avoid random things that you might want because you recently saw an ad for it or something, We'll get to that later, but not in this exercise. So everyone has we have the ideal of oh man, it'd be cool if I had this dream house and these dream cars. And then we have the obnoxious of, well, I'd also love a solid gold Boeing. Let's leave out the solid gold Boeing for now and talk about the dream house and the dream car. So like I said, this is usually the new car, the new house, any additional domestic help you might want, like a maid, or a pool person or yard or whatever, a chef, anything like that. An upgrade for the kids' school, things like that. So We want the monthly cost of this, by the way, because we're trying to determine how much money your business needs to make consistently per month in order for you to have both the freedom and the stuff that you want, right? So when you're looking at the house cost and the car and all that kind of stuff, a good place to get fairly accurate estimates of what it'll cost you on a monthly basis is a website called bankrate.com. They got a good mortgage calculator and car leasing calculators and buying calculators, things like that. It's all free to use there. So really get the actual number to the penny. So let me brainstorm with you now some categories of stuff that people often come up with. There's the obligatory new car. You got to get the new car, one for you, one for the missus, one for the kids. Each kid, whatever, it's usually the first thing people do is they upgrade the car and the house, right? Which is fine. Well, why wouldn't you want to? So new car, new house, gonna have those. Maid service, you probably want to have that. Gardener for the big yard if you get the big house or whatever. This will always vary. I'm just trying to give you ideas. School upgrade for the children, so you might want to send them to that very expensive military school, right, or whatever. A tutor, so they can learn Swahili and learn how to not only speak but write Swahili. That's important. You might want to upgrade your date nights. Do the old 5-star restaurant twice a week or whatever. I think that's actually more important than a lot of this stuff, as a matter of fact. Upgrade the groceries, right? So instead of buying groceries at the regular grocery store, you might want to shop at Whole Foods where you can pay triple for less groceries if you want to. That seems to be very satisfying because it says organic on them. That's what we do. We are the easiest people to market to in the world here in the current household. You might want a nanny to look after the children's clothing upgrades. So this is where you say, okay, well, actually, I'd like to upgrade my wardrobe, and I'd like to shop at Gucci every weekend, and I'd like to have a ritual every weekend. I want a Gucci. I want to go get something from Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and what other Burberry or whatever the fancy clothing places are and stuff. You might want to have an annual vacation upgrade. So most people take vacations every year, and a lot of people just kind of have a tradition. You might want to form a new tradition that says, you know what? I want to spend $30,000 on my Christmas holiday vacation every year. Not only do I want to do that, I want to upgrade Christmas. And I want to make sure that I have at least $1,000 per person that's important to me so I can really give them something meaningful or whatever. It's all up to you. But this is the time to do that. And again, do the stuff that's important, right? So we used to do these exercises. We'd be like, okay, so you want 3 jets? All right, and we'd figure out how much you got to make to have 3 jets and everything. Most people could give a shit about 3 jets. I know this because I've done all that kind of stuff, I mean, I never had 3 jets, but I've done the obnoxious cars and all that, and it's pretty cool. So do what you think you want, but there's no point in pushing it to things that you would just have just for the sake of having is what we're after, right? So once you do that, get that number, that total monthly cost, and write it down in your notebook under the heading fancy number. And now we're going to do the unthinkable. Now that we have these 2 numbers, we're going to do the unthinkable. We're going to address reality, we're going to act responsibly, and we're going to do math. Yes, it's still me. By the way, this is still Kern talking to you, and I'm telling you that we're going to live in the world of reality, we're going to act responsibly, and we're going to do math. So it's fun to do this, by the way. The reality is we're going to want to set aside some money. The reality is you don't want to work forever. You want to put some aside to invest. The reality is you got to market. The reality is you got to pay taxes. So we're going to figure out, with all that said, really what you got to make. So first we're going to do the obvious, right? Which is we're going to take both numbers and we're going to add them together. We're going to add the freedom number together, which was your basic expenses. And then we're going to take the upgrade stuff and we're going to add that together for a total net needed sum. So I'm just giving you an example. If our current living expenses are $10,000 and then all the fancy stuff we want is going to cost an additional $10,000 a month, then the total net that we need to make is going to be $30,000. I'm just adding those 2 together. So on your legal pad, figure out your TNN number real quick. Should be just a second because you're just adding together 2 numbers. All right, so step number dos. Now what you want to do is you want to take that total net needed and you want to multiply it by 60%, because the fact of the matter is you're going to want to invest some money or save some. I shouldn't be telling you what you're going to want to do. I'm advising you to set some money aside, right, for savings, for rainy day, and for investment and so forth. So that's why I'm choosing 60%. Figure You got to pay 50% in taxes. Now I know I got a lot of financial people in the class. So you financial guys are like, well, actually, you could save. Well, I know you could save money on taxes. Let's just generalize here, all right? Because we obviously are going to plan to be in the highest possible tax bracket. So figure on half of your money's got to go to the man for taxes. And then let's set aside at least 10% of it, right? So in my example, I took my TNN number, my total net needed, which was $30,000. And I multiplied it by 60%, which means I need to make an additional $18,000 for savings and taxes, all right? So what we want to do now, of course, is we want to add the total net needed, and we want to add that tax and savings number to it. So now we know what we need to bring in gross every month. So, for example, I need $30,000 total net to live my lifestyle and have my stuff. And if I want to save money and set aside money for taxes, I'm going to need to make an additional $18,000. So my total gross sales figure needs to be $48,000, right? So if we did $48,000 a month, according to this hypothetical situation, obviously, then I would have enough money to pay for all my stuff. I wouldn't have a big scary tax bill. I might even be able to, pay less in taxes and have some left over, but right now we're figuring 50% taxes. Plus, I'd be automatically setting aside 10% of my revenue every month, which is the most responsible thing you could do financially, according to responsible financial people, right? Is to automatically invest. A friend of mine, a guy named David Bach, wrote a book called Automatic Millionaire, and he said, if you can just automatically set aside a portion of your income every month, and before you know it, buddy, you're rich, right? There's a little more to it than that, but let's just go ahead and do that. Why not, right? We're designing your life and your business, so I advocate that practice. So we know now we got to make $48,000 monthly gross sales. Obviously, your number is going to be different. Higher, lower, doesn't matter. Now, this is where a lot of people would stop. They'd be like, okay, so let's reverse engineer that, but what they're not dealing with is reality. And the fact of the matter is we've got to market, right? We got to. So I'm going to figure, hey, why not just figure it's going to cost us 25% of our gross sales every month in order to drive the traffic necessary to generate those sales? We should probably be able to do it for less, but why not make it, why not pad the numbers in our favor in this case? So now what I want to do is I'm going to take this monthly gross sales, I'm going to multiply it by 25% to get what I want my marketing budget to be every month. And this isn't set in stone. This is just me just kind of randomly generating a marketing budget. And I think it's a high marketing budget for what we're trying to accomplish in this particular example here. But we might as well factor it in, right? We might as well go ahead and factor it in. So these numbers, we want to add that together now. So I have my monthly gross that I need, and then so I want to also be able to have 25% of that number to spend on marketing, but still gross the same after marketing costs, right? So we multiply my $48,000 a month monthly gross number by 25% marketing costs. It means I'm also going to need to make an additional $12,000 to cover the marketing costs, right? So now I have 48,000 plus 12,000 equals, in reality, with responsible and realistic thinking, it means in order to meet my fancy and freedom lifestyle number and pay obnoxious amounts of taxes and save 10%, put away, what is it, $6,000 a month for savings, and have $12,000 a month to spend on marketing, I need to bring in total gross sales $60,000 a month, right? That's what that says. That's a moderately high number, but not really, considering the prices that we charge for the type of stuff that we're selling in this business. So your number may be different. Now, I know that I'm going to have a couple people at this point going, oh my God, I don't have $12,000 to spend on marketing. Well, of course you may, but if you don't, of course you don't, right? We roll up to that. We grow the business. That's why I'm saying this is our goal from like a year from now, or ultimately a quarter from now. You can ramp it up pretty quickly, actually, but by no means am I going to suggest that you just go out and blow $12,000 testing marketing. We start small and we reinvest our profits at first until it gets rolling. Doesn't take long with this business model because we have very, very high profit per customer, which is awesome. As a matter of fact, let's just figure that out right now. But before we do, I want to write the new statement, right? Because now we're getting really, really close. So we had that old statement, which was saying a year from now I'll be doing my very best work, dealing with the right people. Well, now what we want to do is we want to say 1 year from now I will earn, now you put in your prime monthly goal there. So 1 year from now I will earn $60,000 per month by selling high-paid advisor coaching to people who have something of massive transformational value to sell and are both willing and able to advertise, right? So that just summed it up. Boom, right there. And then, of course, you have your same statement as before, which is I will under no circumstances do product launches, work with business opportunity people in any capacity, or build and code my own web pages, and I will have reduced, delegated, and possibly eliminated any continuity revenue that I'm depending on, right? So that was my statement. Of course, that's hypothetical. My numbers are significantly different, but you need to write your own down and write it down. Seriously, like go ahead, write it down. It takes 3 seconds, dude. Write it down. Like what? Why would you wait? You know what I mean? You invested a lot of money in this course. It is very important to me that you get a significantly high return on your investment with this, and I can't really guarantee that's going to happen for you, especially if you don't do the work. So write this down for me. All right, so now that we have that statement, now let's reverse engineer what it takes to get there, okay? So we know what you need to make per month in order to meet your lifestyle goals, keep your nose clean with the tax ombre, and set aside a monthly cushion for savings, and also set aside a huge sum of money for future wealth and for your marketing expenses, right? So now all we got to do is create a plan to get there, to make that happen. And since we know what your very best work is, and we know who you want to attract into your business, we have a hell of a good start. So all we got to do now is structure your offer, determine a price for what you're selling, and figure out how many customers you need per month. And once we have that, then bam, the rest of our work, buddy, is dedicated 100% on attracting those customers, converting them into customers, and serving them impeccably so they're happy customers and they refer others. So really, it's pretty much downhill once we figure this out, right? And once we have this plan, putting it into place isn't that hard. Because hell, I mean, our whole system's pretty simple, right? We place some ads, do some webinars, and sell some stuff. I mean, that's really not rocket science. But unless we do this work first, we're kind of steering our ship without a rudder. So we're hosed, right? So the big question that you're asking, what do I sell? What do I charge for it? Well, what you're always selling is going to be the result of your very best work. So people don't care. Like when people come to me and they say, I want some consulting, they're not like, oh boy, consulting. Yay, I get to talk to Frank Kern. No, they're buying the result of that consulting, which is going to be increased revenue, right? So it's always the case, right? So if your very best work is working with successful doctors to help them get a girlfriend, what you're really selling, what they're really buying is get a girlfriend, which can actually be extrapolated to emotionally and psychologically to happiness and fulfillment, right? If your very best work is coaching realtors to sell more houses, you're selling sell more houses, which can be extrapolated into success and freedom and prestige within their industry, right? So the bottom line is understanding the result of your very best work will help you determine the price to charge. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to just try to just figure out what you're going to charge, and then next week we figure out how to actually create your offer and design your curriculum. So I know it's like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to, I mean, I know that I'm going to help people do X, Y, Z, but how am I going to do it? Don't let that, internal weirdness mess you up right now. Let's just have a rough number of what you think the result is worth, right? And then we'll get on to next week and how specifically help them get that result and how you advertise it, or more specifically, how you create your offer. So I'm going to ask you to sort of have a leap of faith with me right now when you come up with a preliminary concept of what to charge. Now, there are two ways to do it. Pricing strategy number one is the cold hard numbers approach. This is very helpful when you're dealing with dollars and cents type of businesses. So what you want to do is you want to determine the dollar value of just a little bit of the results you could provide. So for example, if you help certified financial planners get new clients, then you need to learn what the average value of one new client is. And then you want to charge a little bit less than that, right? So if the average value to these guys that you're helping, if their average new client was worth $6,000 to them, well, you could charge $5,000, and your logic would be, look, we know you're going to get more than one client, but even if you just get one new client from this training, you're still going to turn a profit, right? So it's a cold, hard number logic approach. Same thing, let's say, if you're helping people stay married. So we'll figure what's the cost of divorce for this demographic, right? And if you're dealing with like affluent business owners, it could be extremely high, as I tell you from experience, right? So if you're dealing with that kind of situation, you say, well, if the average cost for them to go through this divorce, lose half of their net worth, and, have all this negativity and weirdness in their life, that's going to cost them at least $150,000. Well, your little, $10,000 course is nothing in comparison to that, right? So the formula, if you could call it a formula, is you take the dollar value of the end result and you charge either slightly or a lot less than that, right? So in the certified financial, well, here, I actually have a little bullet for it. So if our new client, like I said, to a certified financial planner is worth $6,000, you charge that only $5,000. You say, hey, if you just get one measly client from doing this, you turn a profit, right? And what happens is this makes it virtually impossible for your clients not to benefit. So even if they put forth very little effort and just get one client or something, well, they still turn a profit, right? And they know this inherently. You don't even have to tell them, like they're going to know this. So it helps them make the decision to buy. So that's strategy number one for those of us who are dealing with the cold, hard, real numbers, right? Pricing strategy number two is raw emotion. This is equally as effective. If you're selling something that's not related to money, then you kind of have to go on raw emotion, right? So the best strategy is to simply decide what it's worth for the client to no longer have the pain associated with the problem that led them to you in the first place. And what you can do really is you just determine that number, even if you have to guess, and you charge slightly less. You know, so you could figure, I mean, there's one way you could be like, well, you know, if the guy didn't have a girlfriend, he's in an enormous amount of pain from not having a girlfriend, and he's either going to bars every weekend and getting liquored up and trying to hook up with his women who are doing the same, and, you know, he's probably spending $100 a night, you know, 2 nights a week, so that's $800 a month. Over the course of the year, he spent whatever 8 times 12 is $9,600, I think. You know, so therefore, if I charge him half of that, it would be okay. You're kind of starting to extrapolate dollars and cents, or you could just be like, you know what, this person is in a lot of pain, and he probably would easily give anything to get out of that pain, and I think $4,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 is fair. And then you just sort of go for it, right? So the important thing to remember is that because we're in the business of providing massive transformational value and solving very serious problems, premium prices are met with significantly less resistance, as is our risk of being commoditized because of the way we sell this stuff and the fact that we're helping people before we even deal with them and delivering so much value to their lives by what we're giving them. We rarely run the risk of being treated as and viewed as a commodity. So price comparison is less of an issue in this model than with other models. So the way you target your market and the way that you bring them to the point of a buying decision should really ensure that you never have to defend your price. So if you're still like, well, I still don't know what to charge, and just randomly choose a number that feels right now, just choose one and write it down. And we'll just go with that. And the good news is you can always change it. You know, you're never married to this thing because you only reveal the price to a very tiny group of people at one time. It's not like you're going to an entire marketplace and staking your flag in the sand and saying, I am blah, blah, blah. You know, everything's really under the radar. So this is our preliminary pricing strategy. Now, this is subject to change. What we want to do right now is we want to get a rough concept. So here's what I want you to do. Using either pricing strategy, come up with a rough idea of what you're going to charge your clients for helping them get the results they want, right? Remember, you're not married to this number. You can change it. It's cool. We just want a preliminary plan right now. So do not worry that you haven't specifically outlined what you're actually going to deliver yet in terms of your criteria and such. And, you know, you may have actually outlined it already. Who knows? But if you haven't, it's okay. We're going to do that. Right now, we just want to formulate a plan, right? So just write down the price that feels right. And by the way, this is how I come up with all of my prices. Like when I chose the price for this, it just felt like a good price. For all I know, I could charge twice this. You know, who knows? I just kind of pulled the price out of my ass. There's no real wrong way to do it, right? What you always want to do is make sure you don't undervalue your stuff. So now it's time to do more math, okay? So take your prime monthly income goal and divide it by your price per client. So for example, if my prime income goal was $60,000 and I was the guy selling to certified financial planners or something, and I'm charging $5,000 per client, then I need 12 clients to meet my income goal, right? Pretty simple. 60 grand divided by 5 equals 12 clients needed. So now what I've got, now that I know the amount of clients I need to attract on a monthly basis, I've got the makings of a solid plan. So now check it out. I have an official plan. We can complete the statement. We say 1 year from now, I'll earn $60,000 a month by selling HPA coaching to entrepreneurs with something of massive transformational value to sell who are willing and able to advertise. I will attract 12 clients per month in order to meet this goal, and I will under no circumstances perform product launches, work in any capacity in the business opportunity market or with business opportunity clientele And I will never ever code or design my own web pages again. And I will have reduced, delegated, and possibly eliminated any dependency on continuity revenue from my business. So now I've got a very, very solid plan. So the reason this is significantly important, because now every step going forward, everything we do from this point forward is going to be dedicated to two things. First, we're going to most importantly construct the program or service you'll be selling in such a way to make sure it's worth more than what you sell it for, also known as creating your offer and delivering your service, right? That's our first mission. After this training is we're going to figure out exactly, all right, now that you know what your very best work is, you know your result, let's determine the best way to get the results for your clients, how to sell it effectively for this high ticket, right? So once we do that, we're going to dedicate 100% of our efforts to building and implementing a system which consistently and predictably delivers a monthly minimum of at least the number of clients you just said you needed for your optimum prime monthly income. Not an arbitrarily determined income that you think might be nice, but the exact amount of money you need in order to have your time freedom, to have all the cool stuff you want, to pay your taxes, to invest 10% of your revenue, and to have a 25% marketing budget as well, which is obnoxious. You should by no means need to spend that much money, but I'd much rather plan for the worst, right? So this is crucially important because everything now is downhill. We have absolute clarity of what you want and confidence of what you're going to do to make it happen. And in this example, 12 clients, seriously, that's nothing. Right? I mean, we used to waste so much time, well, not waste, we used to expend so much effort on product launches to do, to get thousands of clients that didn't even produce nearly the results that this type of model does. So you're really, really going to enjoy it. So next week, after this training, well, obviously we're going to talk on Thursday, but next week in our training then, you're going to determine specifically what you're going to sell. We're going to outline your curriculum. We're going to use the milestone set point method, which I'll teach you. It's awesome. So it eliminates any fear of what to do, how to construct your curriculum. And then we're going to revise your price point if necessary. And usually when it's necessary, you decide to charge more rather than less, right? So we've got a heck of a class here, and I really, really appreciate the fact you stuck with me in this training, which involved both math and reality and responsibilities, three of the least fun things we could think of, right? But don't you feel better having a solid plan? I know I do. When I finally did this exercise, I was able to completely eliminate things that weren't serving me, which is why, if you're on my list, you rarely even see me sending emails anymore. It's like, don't need to. Just focus on getting my little clients here and rolling out. So that's what I encourage you to do as well. So I look forward to seeing you on the Q&A. Again, that's live on Thursday, and next week's training will be up where we talk about designing your curriculum and finding out specifically how you're going to get these value and turn that very best work of yours into a marketable thing that's going to provide you with the lifestyle that we've already outlined. So I look forward to speaking with you on Thursday, and I'll see you in next week's training as well.